All right, so let's get this started. Today on the Women Mind the Water podcast, I am speaking with Lexi Doudera. Lexi is the founder and executive director of Saltwater Classroom, a nonprofit with a focus of educating youngsters about the importance of our oceans and the need for sustainable practices to ensure the future of our oceans. The Women Mind the Water podcast engages artists in conversation about their work and explores their connection with the ocean. Through these stories, Women Mind the Water hopes to inspire and encourage action to protect the ocean and her creatures. Our guest today is Lexi Doudera. Lexi holds degrees in marine biology and environmental studies from Northeastern University. Lexi started a 501c3 nonprofit as a way to educate young people about issues that affect the world's oceans. Saltwater Classroom teaches youngsters in grades 4 through 6 about ocean stewardship. Saltwater Classrooms offers week-long workshops that connect students to the marine environment. Hands-on lessons are strengthened with a web-based platform that connects kids from across the globe and encourages them to share their passion for the ocean. For listeners who might be wondering if Lexi's work fits within the definition of artivist, my answer is a resounding yes. Fueled by her passion for the ocean, Lexi has designed a creative vision for inspiring young people to take action. Not to mention that there is a good deal of artistry in creating educational curriculum that will engage young learners. Welcome, Lexi. Thank you for being my guest on the Women Mind the Water podcast. I'm excited to learn more about Saltwater Classroom.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And thank you for the great introduction.
You're very welcome. I'd like to begin by asking how you came to found Saltwater Classroom, as opposed to the many other paths you might have followed given your background in environmental studies and marine biology.
Once I had the idea for Saltwater Classroom, it was almost like I had no choice but to follow the path that I was on. And the idea first came to me, I was during my undergraduate years. I went to Northeastern in Boston. I was actually studying marine biology and environmental studies, as you mentioned, but I was in Viña del Mar, coastal city in Chile, and I saw an opportunity to have young students learn about the oceans, but also connect with one another. At the time, my interests were in urban coastal sustainability, and I was learning about environmental education as a pathway for communities, cities, countries to grow sustainably. And I was also volunteering in a 5th grade classroom, and I kind of just, this idea came to me. There was a lot of similarities between the coastline here in Maine, where I grew up, and the coastline in Chile. And I had this idea and kind of ran with it. I went back to Northeastern in Boston and developed the curriculum and the rationale and the business plan and everything as my senior thesis, my senior capstone project at Northeastern. And 6 months after I graduated, we did our first program.
How did you come to settle on the age group that Saltwater Classroom works with?
So we work with grades like 3 through 6, 9 to 12 years old. And the reason that we work with these students is there's actually a lot of different reasons. They, they're old enough to understand complex topics like cause and effect and action and impact. They're able to understand their global role in society and in the larger picture a little bit more so. So that's a big piece of it. They're old enough to kind of grasp some complex ideas, which is certainly necessary when you're talking about the ocean, but they're still very curious and asking all kinds of questions and kind of unencumbered by social or cultural things. They're still, in very formative years. So there's been lots of studies that have shown that this is kind of the most effective age range to work with in terms of environmental education. And for those reasons, really, they're also really competent, talkative agents of change. They have amazing peer influence on, other people their age, but also their parents, their families, their communities. If you, excite kids about something, you almost, can't hold them back at a certain point. So that's another thing that is really important. And it's a really fun age range to work with. The kids are always, so curious and so eager to learn and really excited about learning still.
So have you done it alone, or did you have a team to help you develop your vision? And what were the particular skills or assets that you felt were most important to putting together a team?
Certainly haven't done it alone. Been very lucky and fortunate to have a great network of people behind us throughout the whole process. At the beginning, it was my family and friends that stepped up to help run our first program, in 2018 in Camden, Maine, my hometown. And since then, they've continued to be incredibly supportive. We've grown our board of directors and engaged other community members and things like that, businesses and local support that way. But I'd say overall, in terms of our core team, the real assets and, attributes that we look for are a commitment to the vision of Saltwater Classroom, a belief in the power of education to bring about sustainable change for our oceans and our environment. And, I'd say flexibility and ability to adapt. And as we are a young nonprofit, there's a lot of that. So I think that's another inherent attribute.
So how do you go about developing a curriculum? And what are the most important elements that you focus on in the Saltwater Classroom's curriculum?
So I certainly don't have a formal background in education. I created our first curriculum that still to this day serves as the backbone of our Saltwater Classroom core curriculum. But I really just based it off of my college education in marine biology. I, looked at the themes and things that we were learning, that I learned over the course of my 4 years studying marine biology, and based lessons and activities and topics and things off of that. Our curriculum, starts with a really broad introduction to our planet's oceans, instilling in students kind of a global perspective that's necessary when talking about the oceans, and then zeroes in on some narrower topics. We learn about the coast and coastal environments, marine life, the seawater itself, and then we always conclude talking about today's ocean. So the ways that we're connected to the ocean, but also the issues facing the oceans today.
Do you cover big themes like ocean acidification, or is that too large or too complex?
No, we certainly do. There's a piece of it in our core curriculum, and then we're developing deep dive workshops as well that are more focused on even narrower topics. So the first one that we did a virtual program of it in February, and that was focused entirely on coral reefs. So when addressing coral reefs, ocean acidification is a big issue. So we covered it more in depthly there. But yeah, we would definitely cover that in our core curriculum as well. And then to your question before, the core tenets of our curriculum, and there certainly are some, I'd say the first thing that it's hands-on and experience-based as much as we can. We're getting students into the environment, whether they're coastal and they can go actually to the intertidal zone, or in their backyard or in their local park, having students experience the education in an outdoor setting and in a natural environment. So hands-on, having students do some of the science or learn as much as they can with their hands, and experience-based, making it a whole immersive experience that sticks with them and that they remember, and that sort of thing. The second thing is it's interdisciplinary, rooted in science and conservation, but incorporating art and music and language, because one of my core beliefs is that, as humans, we connect to the ocean in all number of ways, and our education about the ocean should reflect this. So that's part of the reason why we We do include art in our curriculum or music or any number of things, but just kind of trying to inspire students who, might not be inclined to math or science or what have you, to care about the oceans and learn about the oceans. And then the last piece is that our education and our approach is global. We, inspire students to not only think globally about our oceans, but connect with students that are learning, in Mexico or Maine or wherever, connect and kind of bridge cultural differences and geographic distance to come together and unite over the ocean.
So are you saying during one of the sessions that you actually have the kids go to computers and work with students that you've worked with before? How do you connect students today from Camden, Maine to Chile?
Yeah. So we haven't done a workshop in Chile yet. I have big plans to return to the school that I first had this idea for, and do some programming there. But the way that the connection happens is through a technology-linked education, a web-based portal where students can access material but connect with one another as well. And this component is, only poised to grow. And as we, pursue more funding sources to further develop this component, it's just more and more. So we have a pretty developed prototype for an app where the students would, access news stories or log on and, earn progress towards badges about doing beach cleanups or whatever, but also connecting with different students.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
So as I stated in the intro, there is an artistry in developing a nonprofit and nurturing it to support a vision. Can you describe for me how you went from that vision to a working creation?
Yes. I think we're still, a work in progress, and I think always will be. There's certainly a lot of merit in the growth mindset and, never reaching perfection or never stopping, always reaching higher. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the support that we have had from individuals and people close to me, but also the community, the Maine community, and people even outside of Maine. The support is one thing that certainly has helped us on this journey. But then the second piece I'd say that continuously refuels us is the response that we get from our programs. The students really love the work that we're doing, and they get a lot out of it and learn a lot and have a lot of fun while doing it. So I think that is always, another piece that really keeps us going.
You did say you went back to school and got some education in business. And obviously you can have a great vision, but if you don't have some way to sell your idea, you have to have students or classrooms or after school activities that want to participate. So could you tell me a story about an activity that exemplifies what Saltwater Classroom is trying to accomplish?
Yeah, certainly. I think a couple of examples come to mind. The first thing is one of the first lessons that we do in our curriculum. We have students look at a globe and estimate the percentage of our planet that is ocean and the percentage that is land. After they do this, their estimates, we go on to explore how the percentage of our planet, 71% of the planet's surface is ocean and only 29 is land. And we talk about kind of the implications of this and why it's called planet Earth when in fact it's mostly ocean. So the conversation among the students usually revolves around, us being humans and living on the land, and we're the ones that do the naming. So we call it planet Earth. And then the implications of that, the Earth is the primary focus, maybe the ocean has been neglected, whatever. The conversations that come out of this are always, I think, getting at what we hope to inspire students to do, which is just think, a little differently about the oceans, than they might have. But that's the kind of thinking that we inspire. And then we always, one of our final activities is always a community or coastal cleanup. So we have students, in around their school or in their neighborhood or down by the shore, do a cleanup and find the litter and trash in their area. And then we analyze it and look at it and brainstorm creative solutions to issues that they found, whether it's cigarette butts or straws or fishing line. They think creatively about solutions and present them. And that's another, I think, activity that really speaks to, the focus and mission of.
So have you worked with kids that aren't based on the coast?
We have not done an in-person workshop too far inland. There's been schools that are 45 minutes or so from the coast. But I'm trying to think, some of our participants for our virtual workshop that we've done over the past year, a couple of our virtual workshops were more inland focused. Initially, our program was really focused on coastal environments, but we have since adapted a lot of our lessons and activities to be done in places that are not coastal because, the ocean influences us all regardless of where we live. And, so that's definitely a piece of it. And we're going to continue to focus on our inland ocean connection as well.
Okay. So I know from my personal experience that kids can be great teachers. Mm. What have you learned from the kids you've worked with?
We're constantly learning from them. It's amazing. They really are. I mean, it's just endless. And something I'm so grateful for, to be able to learn from them. I think the biggest thing is just, learning what they're curious about and what they ask questions about and what, sparks the curiosity in them.
So is there anything else you might say to listeners who are considering charting their own path as a means to encourage action to protect the oceans and her creatures?
I think, the piece that I always say when people ask, what we can do to help the oceans or what my advice is always to keep learning and keep, seeking out new information and learning new things about the ocean and just keep, forming this relationship that we have with the sea and with the ocean and let it be formed by the ocean as well. But my biggest thing is to keep learning, to be curious and to be open to new things and just kind of embrace that piece of it. I think that the oceans are full of endless knowledge and insight. And if we just kind of tune into it a little bit more, I think there's lots that we can learn. So that's kind of our position in the Saltwater Classroom. We believe that there's a new wave of ocean education, and we're working to build this new wave of ocean education. And we certainly would welcome anyone to be a part of it.
It's been very interesting talking with you today and learning about Saltwater Classroom.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking with you as well. Happy to share some of our experiences. It's been a wild ride, but it's wonderful work, and I'm very lucky and grateful to be doing what I do.
Very good. I'd like to remind our listeners that I've been speaking with Lexi Doudera for the Women Mind the Water podcast series. The series can be viewed on womenmindthewater.com. An audio-only version of this podcast is available on the Women Mind the Water website, on iTunes, and on Spotify. Women Mind the Water is grateful to Jane Rice for the song Women of Water. All rights for the Women Mind the Water name and logo belong to Pam Ferris Olson. This is Pam Ferris Olson. Thank you for listening.